Ladies and gentlemen, how are we doing? Hope everyone's staying safe in the midst of this coronavirus pandemic. My name is Rich Donohue, one of the hosts of A Fighter's Legacy. My partner Nate Evans and I are excited to announce a new direction for our show. Introducing Mma Trufan. Think of this as a little bit of a reboot, but don't worry. The content you've come to expect from A Fighter's Legacy isn't going anywhere. We're still going to be your podcasting source for audio documentaries on your favorite MMA stars, past and present. We'll still be delivering exclusive interviews from the fighter we're covering, their opponents, and everyone in between. If you've been following any of our social media, you've already seen this announcement. If you haven't, why haven't you? Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at MMA Trufan. That's MMA Trufan. We're still in the process of changing over our podcast into MMA Trufan, but subscribers should get an update automatically. Season 1's episodes are being refreshed and should update as well. Now that's out of the way, let's have some fun. At MMA Trufan, we pride ourselves on our interviews. We talk to a lot of people, and those clips find their way into our shows, but there's plenty of stuff that needs to be cut. Things we'd love to share, but didn't quite fit into what we were doing at the time. To celebrate the reboot, let's open the vault and share some great stuff. This is worth it, believe me. Stick around after for a special announcement for upcoming shows. So let's start with the polar bear, Paul Varelans. We spoke to Paul for our Dan Severn episode. Although Paul didn't last very long against the Beast, he's a UFC veteran who appeared in UFC 6, 7, and 8, and both Ultimate Ultimates. He was on the ground floor at the start of this whole thing, and was happy to give us his perspective.
For like the beginning of it, I've got a lot of pride about it because it's a great experience to be able to have, some, roots in the very beginning of something that's become not just, it's more than just a sport now, it's a cultural influencer. I mean, I hear old ladies saying things like, oh, I'm going to tap out, or, and people are saying things in reference to it in just everyday life that, it's a game changer. I mean, it literally, the UFC and MMA in general, I would say MMA and the UFC, that's such a big part of it, but the whole thing has changed what this country's like. I mean, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't just like some new thing, new angle on tiddlywinks or indoor soccer where there's little walls up or something. I mean, this was a major cultural change up with the kind of intensity that MMA brings, and so I mean, I'm pretty proud of it. Let's put it that way. I mean, there's ups and downs to everything. The downside to it is, we didn't get paid crap. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But that's just the way it goes. I mean, you know what I mean? Like all the things that you end up, maybe being a little bit bitter or being a little disappointed or whatever, that's just the way it goes. You know what I mean? Like I find myself starting to get a little bit whiny about things. But I realize, hey man, the guys who started football, same thing. Guys who started hockey, same thing. I mean, when you start something, you don't get paid.
He also wasn't shy about how he felt about the UFC brass, and how they felt about him.
His lawyers hated me too because I would always, they always had these bullshit contracts that I would always, show them how illegal it was, and, I did whatever I wanted because I had a brain in my head. So they really had a hard on against me. And another problem was too, and just a side note, UFC 7, they hated me. Let's put it this way, they hated me. And UFC 7, they lost basically half of their money because me and Marco Huza's fight went longer than the amount of time that they had bought for the cable time.
Yeah.
And half the cable companies in the country pulled the plug on. They lost. And instead of accepting they were too cheap to buy enough cable time, they wanted to come at me and blame me and say I was sick in that fight. And they wanted to say I was just playing the game and I was mess with people, whatever. I'm like, they just couldn't accept their own responsibility in the fact that they lost all the money for that UFC 7. So after the UFC 7, they hated me. And what Marwood said to me was, if you handed me, if my head was on fire and you handed me a bucket of water, I wouldn't take it.
So after Paul lost to Marco Ruas in the UFC 7 final, he expected to have an automatic berth into Ultimate 95.
Here's what's funny is I just been runner-up the UFC 7. I was supposed to be, by their own rules, automatically going into that tournament. They turned around after UFC 7 because they were, bitter. Mark's being bitter a little bit. Bitch, he didn't. I wasn't in it. And they put Keith Hackney in it originally. And I'm like, I call them up, the attorneys, and I say, okay, gentlemen, here we go again. I go, I'm going to sue the holy living shit out of you. For what? Well, he announced that tournament was for champions and runner-ups. You put somebody in there who isn't. That's obviously an attack on me. That's a personal attack. You've broken your own rules to eliminate me from something that I deserve to be in. I'm going to sue you for a shitload of money. And they were like, and that's just realizing this. Like, I couldn't believe it. They're going to get their own, you know what I mean? Okay, so now here we are. You forced me once again to beat you over the head with how stupid you are. Okay? And now I'm going to sue the fuck out of you. So, hey, have a good day. And they're like, oh, no. We got to figure something out. And I'm like, you know what? What are you going to We'll make you an alternate. Fuck you. I'll see you for even more money for downgrading what my worth is and who I am. I'm not an alternate. I'm supposed to be in the damn fucking thing. I was this. And they were like, okay. And so they did this thing where they said, okay, you're going to be what we're going to call the first man, which is ridiculous, But what it meant is I didn't have to do any fighting. If anybody dropped out, I went in automatically, which was actually, that's why I fucked up. I fucked up with that, with what happened there, because once I did accept that, and they paid me pretty good for doing that, I didn't take it seriously. I didn't think anybody in their right mind would drop out of a $150,000 or $100,000 tournament. So I didn't really prepare. I just didn't prepare properly, and I didn't think I was going to be in it. And I had this, I was not ready. And the morning of the fight, I get a knock at the door, and it's all the guys. It's Marowitz and Davies, and they're like, "Dude, you're in." I'm like, "Are you what?" And they're like, "Yeah, man. What was his name? Pat Smith dropped out the morning of the fight," and I was like, I realized, oh my God, I'm so not fucking ready. I didn't think anybody, you know what I mean? Like these are all first time things for me. You know what I mean? Like this was all first time shit. And in retrospect, I should have just trained like a motherfucker and, just in case, but hey, well, guess what? I'm in the ultimate and I'm up against Dan Severn. I was like, so not, I just was not mentally ready, physically ready, and I just went out there, threw some lame kick, which I would never do normally, and he took me down and he choked, put the choke on me and choked me out.
Paul didn't just fight in the UFC either. He made appearances for other organizations, like at IFC 1 Combat in Kiev. After the event, Paul shared a drink, or 3, with his buddy, UFC Hall of Famer, Bas Rutten.
Yeah, we were in Russia for fighting Ukraine, and after the fight was over, obviously, the night before we were leaving, we were drinking tons of vodka with these Russian guys. Me and Bas got along. We always got along. He's a great guy. We've always, he would send me notes and with suggestions for how to approach certain fights, like when we were in Brazil or Japan. But this one night we were drinking pretty heavily. And he's all, I could take you, I could kick you, you couldn't even, he goes, I'd kick your head off. I go, you couldn't even reach my head. I'm like 3 feet taller than you. How are you going to kick me in the head? I could do it. I could jump up, and he does this thing, he jumps up, and it just turned into, like, we started to kind of wrestle around each other, screwing around. And he got behind me to put the choke on me, and I think I went to bite his arm. And I went to bite his arm. He slit me through a window, through a door window. And when I went through it, I got cut. I had to go to a fucking Jesus Christ. The hospitals are scared and shit there. Like, it was like this guy, the chef where he had, comes at me with stitches that look like hockey holy motherfucker. That was a crazy night. Yeah, that was fun.
Another gentleman we spoke with was Pedro Rizzo for our episode on Randy Couture. If you don't know who Pedro Rizzo is, stop what you're doing right now and go boot up UFC Fight Pass. I'll wait. What are we going to do? Go to the bar? You got plenty of time. You all done? Good. You might have seen Nate's video on Instagram talking about Pedro's famous leg kicks, but just to recap, Pedro made a name for himself with those kicks. No more so than his bout against Randy Couture for the UFC Heavyweight Championship. Nate and I had the pleasure of watching this fight live, and I will never miss a chance to tell anybody about that. Pedro destroyed Randy's legs in this fight, so much so, the Natural has a permanent dent in his leg. Here, Pedro talks about that fifth round.
In the fifth round, when I kicked him, he fell on knees. I knew the Randy was fucked up. No, I said, yeah, man, he can't walk anymore. I knew he would remember this fight. I was thinking this guy gonna remember this fight for the next 6 weeks at least.
Randy, of course, went on to win that fight, but he was in bad shape. Pedro remembered seeing him the next day.
I remember the day after the fight, everybody walked to the bus to go to the airport, and Randy was in the wheelchair. Yeah, he wasn't that. No, he wasn't that on the press conference. After the press conference, I helped him the wheelchair, and the day after when we had to go to the bus to go to the airport, he was with one bag, and I think his daughter was with him too. And I carried his other bag because his leg was fucked up because of the fight. And I helped him to carry his bag to the bus.
If you want to hear more about Randy's recovery and his teammates' reactions, check out Randy's episode. Moving on, I got a doozy from Nick Nutter. Nick was an All-American heavyweight wrestler for Ohio State. One of his coaches was the legendary Mark the Hammer Coleman, who became his friend and roommate for a time. Nick was also one of the members of Hammer House, Mark's MMA fight team. When we spoke to Nick, he gave us a story of his first professional fight.
Real quick, I was a prom king in 1992 at Buckeye High School. Never been in a fight in my life. All through college, I was the nice guy, and if people are getting in a fight, I don't want to be in it. And I was the good guy. Never been in a street fight in my life. Never thought of it. Coleman was my roommate, and anyways, we ended up. I was helping him fight for against the first night where you had Big Daddy, Gary Goodrich, and Don Fry. 10. I was his training partner. I was, and then he won 2 or 3 after that before he lost to Maury Smith. But he kept saying, "Nutter, you're the hardest guy I've ever fought. Like, all these guys are horrible compared to you. You should fight." I'm like, yeah. Between him and I'm like, yeah, I can't do that. I don't have it in me. So my wife right now, who I was dating at the time, we've been together since 1988, by the way, but I told my wife, I'm like, hey, Coleman thinks I should fight, and she said, "You would get your ass kicked. What are you doing? You would get killed. You're not." And that pissed me off really bad. So I picked up my Motorola flip phone. It was a big ass phone, and we were at BW3's, or Buffalo Wild Wings. I had gotten a dozen wings, and I had a couple beers in me. And I'm like, okay, woman, watch what you wish for. So I picked up the phone, I called Coleman, and he said, "What's up, Nutter?" I'm like, "Hey, not much." And as I'm looking at my wife in the face, I'm saying, "Hey, remember how you said I should fight?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay, get me a fight." He's like, "You serious?" I'm like, "Absolutely." So I slapped my phone shut, basically looked at my wife like, "Okay, there you go." Well, unbeknownst to me, he called me the next day. He's like, "Nutter, get on the internet." And hell, 2 months later, I was scheduled to fight in Israel in an 8-man tournament. And I really didn't mean what I said at the time. I didn't want to fight. I've never been in a fight in my life. I like peace and quiet. But I didn't like my wife call me, a little bitch. So anyways, it was on. And if I give you my word, I will commit to it. So we ended up, Coleman and I, we went out to Arizona and trained with Mark Kerr. I think, basically we were getting ready for the fight. the odd thing of this fight is we trained about 2 months, didn't drink, got lean, stepped up my diet. And, my diet was never great because in wrestling, in college, what's the worst that can happen? You get pinned or you get beat. Back then, though, in the NHB with headbutts and stuff, what's the worst thing that could happen is you could get killed, It was a different story. So I really trained hard, busted my butt, and we came back to Columbus, and about 2 days before we were to leave for Israel, Coleman calls me. He's like, Nutter, I got bad news. The Israeli government won't allow that kind of fighting. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, this is Israel, where you got the Muslims and the Jews and everybody with machine guns, but they won't allow a good slobber knocker, if you will, of bare knuckle fighting. To me, it was weird. So, hell, I had been sober and training for 2 months, so I decided, all right, I'm going to go have fun tonight. So I made up for about 2 months of not drinking and having fun in about 2 nights. We hit it hard. Anyways, Coleman calls me, and I try to act like I wasn't drinking the night before. I answered the phone, probably vomiting. I'm like, hey, what's up? He's like, Nutter, he's still into fighting. I'm like, absolutely, let's go. He's like, okay, I'll pick you up in about a half hour. I'm like, oh my Lord. Okay, let's go. So he pulls up to my house, and he's got his car, and I throw my bag. At this point, I just threw everything in a duffel bag. Never been out of the country before, never fought, and I throw it in the back end, but I don't see a suitcase in there. I'm like, I get in the car, I'm like, Coleman, what's up? He's like, are you going? He's like, no, with the way the flights are, it's too expensive. You're by yourself. I'm like, oh my God. First of all, I was the prom king, never been in a fight in my life. I don't want to do this. First of all, I just did it because I didn't like my wife saying I was a pussy, and here we go. I'm going to Israel all by myself. Yeah, I throw my thing in the trunk, and he drives me to the airport. Maybe as we're driving, I threw up from being hungover from the night before. I say we touched down at 4:30 p.m. It was a culture shock. As I was going through the airport, there's like maybe 14, 15-year-old kids with machine guns in the airport, like looking at us. And I'm like, oh God, this is... I'm not in Kansas anymore, and me being a Midwest guy, I mean, I wasn't used to that, but hell, we got through security. We started driving to the hotel, and they're like, you got to drop off your bags because the fight's at 7. I'm like, hey, it's 5:30. It's only an hour and a half until the fight. They're like, yeah, just hurry up. So as we're driving, we're on a van with the Russians, like Igor Vovchanchyn and Maxine Tarasov, like big Russian names. The guy's hitting his brakes and swerving, and I had to tell him, the translator, I'm like, pull over, please. So in the middle of, within the first 15 minutes of being in Israel, landing, I'm still hungover from the night before. He pulls over, and all the Russians are just like, and I know what they're saying is basically, I want this guy first round because he's in trouble, and I'm vomiting on the side of the road. So we get back to the hotel. I run my stuff upstairs, and the guy's like, get ready to go. And he's like, you should jump in the sea. I'm like, what sea? What do you mean? At our hotel, the Mediterranean Sea was behind us, and basically I had my fighting shorts on. I had my shoes on. I took my shoes off. He's like, just run into the ocean. So I jumped into the ocean, and it made me feel a little bit better. I get in the car with salt water dripping, and then I put my shoes on. Back then, obviously, I wasn't going to kick anybody because I was a wrestler, but I put on my wrestling shoes, and I had wet shorts and a T-shirt on, and we arrived to the arena, and they're like, Nutter, you're the first fight. I'm like, oh, my God. I'm like, how much time I got? They're like, you're up in 7 minutes. And I'm still shaking the cobwebs out. I'm nervous. I don't have Coleman with me. And I maybe hit the jump rope a couple times, and I had to wring out my shorts because they're so wet from the ocean. And I walk out to the cage, and that was my introduction into MMA. I ended up beating my guy. I beat a guy named Ghetto Man Joe Charles, who was a UFC veteran. Beat him in the semis, and then I had a controversial fight with Igor Vazchinshin. Look at about the 4-minute 30-second mark to 5-minute 30-second mark, and he ended up tapping twice in this fight. And they ended up stopping the fight, and they repositioned him. And fast forward 20 minutes later, I ended up tapping, which I do own, but it should have been over.
Speaking of the hammer, one of the best parts of doing this kind of show is that you get to know guys you've admired for years. Mark was extremely gracious with us and was instrumental for our Kevin Randleman episode. When it came time for his episode, he didn't hold back. He's a fantastic storyteller and a great guy. If you listen to our Coleman episode, you'll know his Grand Prix win and pride catapulted him to superstardom in Japan. Along with his fights, he was making pro wrestling appearances and was involved with some crazy advertisement campaigns. 20 years ago, MMA was nearly extinct in America, but in Japan, it was so huge, MMA stars made regular appearances on TV. Japan is a weird, wonderful place, and their game shows can be wacky. Here, Mark talks about his friend, MMA legend Gary Goodrich, in his appearance on one of these shows. Keep in mind, before Gary got into MMA, he was an arm wrestling champion and strongman competitor.
We put 2,000 Japanese people down in less than 2 hours. One after another. And he told me, he said they saved some big guys for the very end. You know what I mean? And he said when I got to the very end, of course I was, pretty much, getting tired. Then I had a couple decent sized guys. He said, but they had nothing for me. He put everybody down in like two hours, 2,000 guys. Them Japanese come up with some weird games, man.
Mark then shared with us his experience on one of these shows.
These guys put me in a game show. They go out in the streets of Japan and they find 3 different guys. One guy was a garbage man, one guy did this, and one guy did this. And they go up to him with the host of the show goes up to him and says, "Hey, da 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 da," and they open a briefcase full of who knows, $100,000 in Japanese yen. They show to this guy, and I'm not with them. I just come in to do. But they say to the guy, they say, if the guy gets excited about the money, they said, all you have to do is fight this man. And then they show a picture of me. And then he's like, well, the guy says, okay, I'll try. They get 3 guys. We get to, I got 5 minutes and I got to rip the patch. The first 2 guys had a patch on their ass, Velcro patch on their ass. And I had to run over. I had to get that patch off their ass as fast as I could. And, the first 2 guys I had to patch off in like 30 seconds. So I got 4 minutes and 30 seconds for this 3rd guy. And because the promoters told me, please, Coleman, we do not want to have to pay these guys because our show is just starting and we got a budget. So we don't want to have to give these guys $50,000. You know what I mean? I said, yeah, okay. But they changed the rules. They already had 2 or 3 shows. And the 3rd guy had a pair of shorts on. He had 2 pair of tight shorts on. And I had to go take the 1 pair off. I had to get it off his legs and off his feet. So I'm thinking that's not going to be that easy, is it? Right?
No, it's unbelievable.
Well, exactly. The first 3 shows they had, the guy was not allowed to grab his pants, right? But so the first 3 guys the first 3 shows, they won easy. The fighter or the baseball player or whoever star they brought in there, he got the pair of pants off the guy rather easily. So they decided to change the rule, and they said this guy can grab his shorts, Coleman. And I said, hold on. This is not going to be easy. A guy that can hold on to his shorts and you got to take them off the bottom of his feet, right? It's not easy, correct?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so I went out there and I played around with him because I had 4:30 left. I let him grab my leg and I was baiting the crowd a little bit. They were loving it. Then all of a sudden I said, well, I better get serious now. We're down to about 3 minutes. I got to make sure I get these babies off. I threw them down to the ground and I started ripping these fucking shorts off. And he's holding on for dear life, and I'm not getting so far, right? You know what I mean? I'm getting one side down to the knee, but he's just holding on to the other side. Then when I go up for the other side, he would just grab the other side, keep pulling him up. You know what I mean? Pulling him up, pulling him up. You're just saying this is crazy, but this is Japan. I'm out there out of shape in between fights, and this motherfucker was holding on for 50 grand to his pants. And so anyways, I just ripped so hard, I just ripped them right off. They ripped right in half. And they looked at me and said, nope. And they brought out another pair of shorts to put back on him. I'm getting so frustrated. I'm getting so fucking frustrated because I'm so tired. And I cannot get these fucking shorts down, you know what I mean? Because he just keeps grabbing and pulling. And so I said, fuck it. You know, I heard the crowd chanting this guy's name, man. They were chanting his fucking name. And I said, I got to turn it up a little bit. I got to get a little bit dirty here. So I had to start getting a little physical with him and really put the heat on him and try to fucking, you know. And finally, sure enough, I got them fuckers down to his knees. And I'm fucking getting there. I got one side of his pants down to his ankle, and I got the other one down to his ankle now, but he's still holding on. He's still got his legs crossed, and I'm like, motherfucker. And boom. I took him off with about 20 seconds left, I swear to God. I held these fuckers up in the air, and I'm like, I felt so great because I couldn't wait to go get the sushi that these guys are going to take me to get now. I'm going to eat fucking $5,000 worth of sushi right now tonight. Real good, fresh sushi, fresh wasabi, and yes, because it was one of the hardest fucking challenges of my life. It was so fucking hard. My arms and forearms were just done. They were toast, and I was tired, and it was so competitive, and then sure enough, I watched the game show. It's hilarious, man. I got to somehow find footage of it and post it, because people will say, what the fuck? What kind of game show is this?
Absolutely nuts, ain't it? Can you imagine seeing Conor McGregor or Daniel Cormier ripping people's pants off for a national audience? Only in Japan. Well, I promised a special announcement if you stuck around, and I'm a man of my word. So, we've been working hard on our latest episodes, and we should be ready to drop these by the time summer hits. Who are we doing? Well, how about the first ever UFC champion? That's right, Royce Gracie will be getting an episode. It's an honor and a privilege to do an episode on the gentleman. You think that's all we got, though? How about the greatest welterweight to ever step in the cage? None other than Mr. Class himself, George St. Pierre, is getting an episode as well. So now we got two of these guys. How about a third one? I'll give you a third one right now. I'll give you a third. I'm not done. How about possibly the greatest fighter to ever step in the cage or anywhere? The legendary Anderson the Spider Silva will also be getting an episode coming soon. Excited yet? I hope so. That's only 3 guys, and there's plenty more where that came from. So stick around, subscribe, follow us on Twitter, hit us up on Facebook, and please help me welcome you to the new, improved MMA Trufan. See you next time.